Hey, she's here, you're here. All right, let's see if you can do it. I have to get into a headspace to do this. You don't understand what it takes. Youth is disconnected from family, disconnected from friends, disconnected from purpose.
You can have the gift, as you said, like many guys which we know.
Act so horny that you make yourself horny. All of a sudden, in one generation, we don't believe it's possible without a pill. There is always something available to you if you have the right tools.
Mr. Eric Everard.
Yes.
But man, one word to introduce yourself. I know that word, so don't forget that I know how I would call you, and you must know how I would call you. But imagine you don't know. How you would describe yourself with one word?
That's a good question. If I was to say one word, it would be professional.
Professional. Professional, I would say last of Mohicans.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of words. I was thinking.
You're right.
Yeah.
The Mohican, the last of Mohicans. There is a reason why, but we will describe this too.
Yeah.
Okay, very easy question. How old you were when you started porn, and why? Why?
Oh man. So I was 21 years old.
1 year after me. My God. So same age almost.
Yeah, 1998. And it was April 1998, actually. And it was funny because my whole, little backstory, right? I was going to school, and I was studying to become a massage therapist because I had gone to university, dropped out because I was bored. I couldn't find anything that I liked to do. So then a friend of mine, because we both worked at this hardcore gym together, right? It was like everybody was a juice monkey, and it was like it was one of those gyms that today almost never exists, right? It was dirty. It was no girls, except the ones that were there were in super shape, right? But the owner was a bodybuilder. We had drug dealers. We had motorcycle gangs. We had bouncers. Like every sort of avatar of like meathead, that's who trained at the gym. And I trained there, and I worked at the counter, so I sold memberships. And there was a big guy that worked there too. And so when I was leaving university, in Canada, it's sort of the idea is, okay, well, you got to go to school. So I'm like, oh, I got to go to school. I got to do something, right? So he goes, well, I'm gonna go take this massage therapy school. Like, maybe that's something that interests you. And I said, okay, like I'm into working out, kinesiology, maybe. So I go study there. And on lunch break, so it's like, I get my chicken and rice, go to the lunchroom, and they have some free newspapers. And they had this newspaper called the Georgia Straight. So I remember, and it would have the band listings, like what's going on in the city, who's playing, all this sort of stuff. So I grabbed the newspaper, I'm just thumbing through it, right? Eating, thumbing, eating. Turn the page. There's an ad about this big, right? And it's looking for women and couples to do a porn movie. And this is 1997 in Vancouver, Canada. It was like,
What?
we've never seen anything like this, right? Like, what the fuck is this, right? So, and I used to date one girl. She lived with me the year before, and she used to kind of joke. She'd be like, oh, you could be a porno actor. I'm like, yeah, thanks, sweetheart. She was my second girlfriend ever, right? Like, what does she know? What do I know, right? But she thought I had, the equipment. And when I saw that ad, that's the first thing that went through my mind. Is I said, she always said you'd be good at this. And I was like, oh, man, this is incredible, right? I'd never seen, because, Canada, very conservative, right? So I called them up, right? I'm excited. I dial the number, I'm nervous, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'd like to, think about, doing this porn thing, or maybe there's a sort of casting or something. And literally this was it, like, not interested. Click. So I let it go. Like about 7 months went by, because this was 97 when I called, 7 months goes by. Same story. Eating the chicken, lunch break, take the newspaper, thumb through newspaper. Again. Fucking ad, right? I was like, man. And then I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I didn't really pursue it that hard. So I said, let's put a little effort behind. So I call, not interested. I call, not interested. I call. Then I get the owner on the phone. And he's like, well, tell you what. Why don't you come by our studio? We can, take some photos of you, see if you got the equipment, and maybe one day we could find you a job or something. But I'm like, hey, he didn't hang up on me. So, okay. So I go down, and it was in this seedy area of Vancouver. Walk up these stairs, and there's this metal door, and I knock on the door, open it, and he's like, you Eric? I'm like, yeah. And he just looks me dead in the eyes. Says, you fuck a girl first right now? And I remember, I'm freshly 22, right? I'm like, or no, I was 21 then. I was still 21. And literally this little yep, out of my mouth. Because I was shocked. I was not ready for it, right? I was not expecting. I thought I was going to do some pictures. They're going to talk to me. No, they got this girl who showed up 15 minutes before I got there. They're like, hey, she's here. You're here. All right. Let's see if you can do it.
And you did the right way.
No problem.
And from that moment, always, because, man, you are the king of the king. According to all my experience, so many years, that's why I call you the last of Mohicans, because you are working in the modern porn with classic way, which I don't think anybody left in the world is able to do this.
But it's here.
But
that's the
what
problem.
I mean. That's where no, it's not a problem. That's where you have the strong part of you.
But it's the, and I teach this with my students, right? It's like there's a lack of belief. And it all starts with belief, because I had someone ask me, when you did that first scene, was it easy? I said, yes. But I also preface it by saying it wasn't on my map of reality that it wouldn't be.
You already knew it.
Because I had never done a porn movie before, but it was self-belief. And I learned a huge lesson here, which was about you always need to stay humble.
Yeah.
Because I had just I just finished my first trip it was my first trip, I'm pretty sure it was my first or second to Budapest here, for Vince Voyer. So it was Anabolic at the time when, Anabolic was one of the top companies. Vince took me, I was the only American that he took, and went like crazy, and I knocked it out of the park. So I'm riding higher than ever, right? And I'm going to work for Alex Sanders, and him and me were friends. And he was like, oh yeah, how was the trip? And I'm like, oh man, I killed it. I'm really on top of the world. I was just like, blah, blah, blah. Well, I get this girl who I didn't find attractive, right? And so there's that first part. But hey, guess what? You and me have worked with lots of girls that we don't find attractive, and you find your way, right? What is it? Do I have to go into feeling more sensations? Do I have to go into different positioning? Do I have to go somewhere into fantasy? Do I have to excite myself by doing something that maybe is going to just rile me up, and I can almost create a self-fulfilling prophecy? Because that's sort of how I look at it, right? You can, because I've done this now many times, you can almost act so horny that you make yourself horny, in a sense, right? Even though you could look at this girl and be like, if I wasn't here and I wasn't being paid, I wouldn't fuck you.
Yeah.
But I'm here, I'm being paid, and I need to do a job. And so how can I rile myself up? And it does become almost a positive feedback loop, because it's like, okay, you start turning yourself on, and you start, you're getting into it, and then as you get into it, your body starts to believe what your lies are telling it, because it's like you're like, no, I'm really into this, and your body's like, I really am into this, right? But yeah, that day, girl was not attractive, and I had talked myself up so big that day, and it was like It was like karma. Because that day, it was. And then it's like, you know, and I just spent all this time telling Alex how good I had killed it in Budapest.
Yeah,
and
but
this
you-
day, I finished the scene. So I didn't fail. I did the scene. I pulled it off. But it was, man, I was digging deep. I mean, it was definitely, when you're that young, right? Yeah, I was super excited. Like, in terms of, like, I got into the business for the sex and the fun. The business was so different in a lot of ways too, right? And you know, maybe as we go through this, we can kind of dissect that and we can speak to that, right? But there was, like, if I was to look at a male today versus a male 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I started, right? 25 years ago, if you could do what you could do, you could do what I could do. How many were there?
10 all over the world.
Yeah, it was like,
Between Europe and America.
yeah, you're counting kind of, you know, a small handful, which, you know, it's the same thing like, well, if everybody on your block drives a Lamborghini, is that Lamborghini actually valuable? No. So back then, if you could have the 5 characteristics, at least how I look at them, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when I look at if you're going to be a famous actor in the business, there's 5 criteria that you need to have, right? Number 1, you need to be able to get hard on command anytime.
That's I call gift.
Yes.
That means that people have that gift.
Yes.
If you don't have that gift, you can not even access.
You're not even in. So that's number 1, right? Number 2, you should be able to produce a cum shot within a few minutes of being asked, not before, right? Number 3, you should be decently well hung. You know, they don't need to be you, but man, if you're bringing this to the game, you're not going to be a star.
Sorry, guys, I'm laughing because it's so perfect, so detailed. That's why, but it's true.
It's true.
I'm not laughing about the size. I'm laughing how good he describes.
So, you know, then number 4, you should be decently good looking. You don't need to be, you know, Brad Pitt, but if you're a troll, the A-list girls are not going to work with you. They're just not. They're going to be like, especially back then, right?
Yeah.
You know, if she was like one of the superstars, no, I'm not working with him. I can choose who I want. And then the last one, which is the most important, is you need to be able to extract something from the woman that would not have been there if you specifically yourself were not in the scene with her.
Yeah.
Because you can see the difference, and I've seen this many times. We could take some of the greats, right? You can take a Sandra Romaine. You could take today like a Cherry Kiss. You could take some of these iconic girls, right? That are almost, they're like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they're man eaters.
Yeah.
They're man eaters, right?
Perfect, yeah.
Put them with a C-level guy, she goes down to their level.
Yeah.
The girl can only rise to the level of the man.
Yeah, of course.
It's the same thing like, you know, come on, you're Italian. Like, you have a Ferrari, put Michael Schumacher behind the Ferrari, we're winning the F1. You know, put the guy that's the janitor of the high school behind the Ferrari, probably not winning the F1 race. Car's the
everything.
same,
You need everything.
but who's driving the car? So from that perspective, you need to be able to bring something out of the girl, and that's when I look at the great actors, that was always the thing. Now, it could be multiple things, right? Maybe you were super athletic. Maybe you could get her to believe that you loved her, but you're able to bring something out of her that if it was just some average guy, you'd get nothing.
Impossible. In fact, Manuel Ferrara, when you just arrived in Europe, told me, Rocco, I'm so sad today. Why? Eric left US. You are the only actor, probably, who I know in the world from the history of porn who really was successful in America and moved to Europe. It's like from A to B. Why?
Well, once I came here, I had made the decision that I was moving, right? And so there was no real going back to the U.S. and I initially did it for an actress that I was dating. right?
Okay,
So it's like I came for a relationship that didn't work out,
okay.
and so then it was like, okay, I'm here, so we're gonna stay here and we're gonna make it. And I always wanted, from the first times that I came to Eastern Europe, I always wanted to move here eventually. So I never had aspirations of living in Los Angeles. I'm almost like a homeless person in the perspective of, what's my home? I never felt like I was, I don't really feel like I'm Canadian anymore. I never felt like I was US. I was always drawn to Eastern Europe because I'm half Ukrainian. So, but it's like, well, where do I end up? I don't know. To be determined as the story goes.
But why you are so successful? For your beauty, you are smart. He's laughing. Okay, you are
yeah.
handsome. You are handsome. Come on.
Oh, but when I always thought about what made me successful, it was
All the 5 points you
it was
you
the
point.
5 points, but more than that,
Personality.
it was reliability.
Yeah, profession.
Like, because I still think, we got to find some wood here because I'm going to have to knock on it. But, I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never failed a scene. There's never been a scene that I didn't finish.
Eric, 3 decades almost.
Yeah, almost 3 decades.
And which one was your best decades between the beginning and today? You are really someone, as I said, who passed 3 decades with a big change. Because when you start, it was still the old style.
Yeah.
I passed 4 decades. The first decades for me was like almost surreal because it was cinematic. So it was not even video, it was everything so cinema.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden change things. But you really move into video, then internet, and now modern.
Yeah. That's sort of interesting because, I came in at the tail end of the 90s, so there was still some cinema. So I did get a little taste of the cinema, but
16
it
millimeter.
started to go away rapidly, right? We had some old vivid Paul Thomas.
Yeah, Paul
those movies where there was definitely that cinematic style. There was a big crew. You were there all day, girls running around. You had the script, you had the catering. It was a whole big ordeal. And those were fun because it was different and it was unique. Then we quickly went into the video era where it was like, okay, now it's a whole different kind of porn because of the technology. Like I remember when the old VX1000, VX2000 came out, ergonomically, that camera changed how you could shoot porno. Because before, every shot was like this. Or you're like with this massive camera trying to get something. Now you had this little thing and you could do...
We have to say thanks to John Stagliano.
Yeah.
He was one of the first to start with this.
Yeah, but now you could do all this kind of stuff and it was ergonomically easy. It was very capable, right? And technology, we can look at now what people can do with an iPhone that certainly you wouldn't be able to get away with back in the day. For me, my favorite era was probably the 2002 to 2007. That was for multiple reasons. I mean, one, I felt there I really hit the level of
Top.
peak for purely my performance, right? In terms
As
of
an actor.
in terms of what my body could do,
yeah.
right? Like now, I still think I'm a great actor, but I know I look at some stuff I pulled off when I was 25, 26 years old. At 46, I go, oh, no. I remember I was working for Mike John one day, and we had this girl, and I mean, she was, really thick, beautiful, but I mean, she was a big girl, right? And I remember, I was, bigger than I am now. I mean, I still work out, but then I was like really strong, right? And she was reverse cowgirl on this couch, and I remember she's down on me, and I grab each thigh, and this girl she probably weighs what you do, right? And my buddy Mike, he's looking at me, and in his head, he told me after he goes, no, you're not going to. I'm like, ugh. And I'm standing with her, right? And it's like, ugh, ugh, ugh. My God, if I were to watch that today, I'd be like, my back is gonna break in half. There's no way I could pick that girl up now.
Now, let's go on normal things. Almost 25 years, no? 25.
Yeah.
Life, I always consider like balance. Is the business make you more positivity, or like doing this business was creating you more problematics? Basically, balance is everything in life.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I don't think that there was anything overtly negative from the porn business. There's always negatives, at least the way I look at it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you sacrifice certain relationships, you sacrifice certain job opportunities, you sacrifice certain people that you're going to have a connection with because they simply won't accept who you are and what you do, right? So there's things that you gain in terms of experience. There are things that you gain in terms of knowledge, understanding, especially if we're looking at females. You really start to get an understanding of, okay, what actually works? How does the female psychology work? So you gain an immense understanding of this when you're in the porn business for a long time, and you have had your eyes open. Because I think some guys, they, you know, especially today, you know, it's like you get guys doing this and they've got blinders on. They can't see what the girl actually likes. They don't care. They don't know what they like. They're just like a robot, like. Yeah, so they don't know anything.
I know.
But if your eyes are open and you are cognizant of taking in the experience and taking in the learning, I think there's a lot of benefit that you can get out of it.
Yeah.
Right? So in terms of balance, I mean, I think everything in life comes in waves, especially when we look at sex and we look at our age and we look at, you know, you're filled with testosterone, so you get in, especially if you're young, like when we were, right? You get in and it's like, I'm ready, I can fuck everybody. And then you start to go through the period, you say, okay, well, what is it that I actually want to get, right? And what is it that actually turns me on? And there's, I think you definitely get to a level where, and I think this happens in every career. You know, even if you were an actor, like a mainstream actor, or you know, you could have any job that you think is the best in the world, but at some point, if you're going to be at it long term, it does become a job, because that's where the level of professionalism comes in. You know, we could look at sports athletes, right? They love what they do. There's days they don't want to, you know, they don't want to kick. They don't want to throw the football. They don't want to, you know, hit the hockey puck. They don't want to. They don't want to kick the soccer ball, but they do. They go to work because it's like, okay, this is my job and this is what I'm paid to do. I do love it. Yeah, today with this sprained ankle, I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. And that is what separates the amateurs and the people that think they can do it from the people that can actually do it. When things are not going your way, when things are not in your favor, when the circumstances aren't perfect, can you suck it up and fucking do it?
Clear.
That's the difference, right?
know.
And that's the difference between an amateur and a professional. The professional
Absolutely.
doesn't necessarily enjoy it every day, but you're going to go there and you're going to make it happen.
What do you think about girls who looks like over too much tattoo? Discrimination? You know, so many girls.
I hate it.
Discrimination.
I just think tattoos are ugly. I call it what it is.
More
right?
direct to this, it's impossible.
I think they're ugly, right? So, you know, it's like, okay, if you went in to that famous French museum, I can't remember right now, the Louvre.
Yeah,
You went
the
into the
Louvre,
Louvre, right? And there is the Mona Lisa on the wall.
Full of tattoo.
Are you gonna take a fucking pen and just draw all over it? Like, oh, you know what? Mona Lisa would look good with some fucking shit on her head and this and that. No, it's art. You know, you look at a beautiful woman, it's art. Why do you want to put shit all over it? I mean, here's the thing, and you probably well, maybe you can or not corroborate this, but this is what I've seen from my perspective, okay? There is something to be said about the girl that comes into the business with a lot of tattoos. Because in general, if we were to take the girls that have a lot of tattoos and the ones that don't, the ones with a lot of tattoos are crazy. Because it's true, right? They almost without
Suicide girls.
they will almost always be more extreme in what they will do and sexually deviant and everything than these, because
But doesn't mean every time bad.
no, it
To
it's
me-
just
to
is
me-
what it is.
To me, a girl which is a little bit crazy, I love it.
You know, because that takes a level of crazy, right? Especially when you have a lot of tattoos. Like if you start getting some tattoos here, some tattoos here, you're already sort of, from a psychological perspective, you're telling the whole world, hey, fuck off. I'm out there already. You know, so what's next? But I do see a difference between the girl that, you know, she has a little one here, she has here, and she does this. When they do this, it's
Special.
they're saying something else, at least even on a subconscious psychological level.
Yeah.
They're saying,
They
look,
need to communicate.
You know, yeah, I'm communicating something by this, and from at least from what I've seen, it definitely spills over into the types of sex that they like, and how that sort of comes out. Because I've always seen, at least my experience with them, they'll go to the further extremes of sex than the other girls,
Yeah, the
generally speaking.
Who knows better than you? In which scene you feel more comfortable? A part of "Don't touch my balls." Don't touch the ball. In which scene you feel more comfortable?
And this is sort of interesting because there's different parts of me that come out. So it's not that and again, so I don't feel uncomfortable. The only thing actually where I feel uncomfortable is in two areas. If I have to directly inflict pain, or if I have to directly do a lot of talking. Because I'm not a talker, I'm all action. If you've ever
With
seen,
sex.
you know,
With sex, yeah.
yeah, with sex.
Because with acting, you are one of the best actors in
Oh
the
yeah,
world.
but when
When-
I'm fucking, have you ever seen me? I'm not talking dirty
No.
stuff. I'm action. I'm totally focused on what I'm doing, but I'm not somebody that's communicating it. So if I've had to do a scene where they want me constantly dirty talking, I'm like, this isn't me. I would never do this. At home, it's like I get a girl, I'm fucking the shit out of her. I'm not talking to her. There's zero
And
talking.
also the pain stuff, I never see you give pain to any girl. That's true. Pleasure, yes,
Yeah,
but pain
yeah.
never.
The pain thing, because I remember there was one scene in Los Angeles, and it was the only time I was really disturbed, and it was one particular girl, and I'd never, in my time, seen a girl take a beating like that, and she was the co-director. So she wanted it, but I was like, no, this is way.
Too much.
I don't think those marks went away for 6 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, I remember at
Was
one.
that kink?
Oh, I won't necessarily say the name of the company, but you can guess. Your guess might be on the mark, but I remember one point like.
Yeah, because there is
Yeah.
it's the thing they do the most since forever, and the girls love it. I remember myself, you know very well Mark Davis,
Yeah, of course.
and Marky was working there, and he told me, Rocco, girls write from all over America to come to get beat up. I'm here 5 days a week to beat up girls
Oh, yeah.
only.
Yeah,
of course.
and that, you know, I mean, I remember they you know the pool cues that you put the pool cues in half and start beating her with that. I was like, and she was like, oh, so, but I'm like, because I look at that, I'm like, you're not of sound mind.
Yeah, it
You
looks-
can't be a sound-minded person and want to get beaten that badly.
Yeah.
It's just-
No, I understand. There is always something, like you said, which goes on the mind or behind the mind. Something which it's always difficult to describe, and either it's complicated because for me, for example, Kelly Stafford, you know Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly pushed me so off limit to do things with her, which is the same, but she was getting upset because I was doing anymore since things became more and more difficult, you know. Kelly, she was in this place and she did her last scene with Malena and me, and she decided to stop porn because this.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't getting beaten.
Yeah, she wanted to have it
She
pushed to
wanted
that
to have
limit.
for real. What do you think about this kind of new era? Platform, people come into porn. Do you believe these people are porn connected somehow, or it's a different word?
Okay, how much time we got? Well, so first off, when I look at the platforms and stuff, from my perspective, what I see with it, because this stuff has been available for 15 years at least, right? So why now? And what I see now is, okay, if we go back, you know, our era, right? Everybody that produced a movie was a man, almost exclusively. Why? Well, I have my theories, and you can bring yours to it as well. But one, when it came to wanting to learn technically how cameras work, you know, to run one of the big video cameras, or a film camera 20 years ago, took a lot of technical expertise. I remember when I was directing movies for Anabolic, and the first movie I edited, I sat in the editing bay, and there was no computer. At that time, we were editing tape to tape.
Yeah, I
So
remember very well.
you know what I'm talking about. It's like, first of all, you're sitting there and you're figuring out the whole movie in advance, because like you can't go back and fix anything. Once you lay it down on the tape, it's done. It's permanent. Now you're moving on because you're doing it in a linear fashion. It's not non-linear editing like they have today, where it's like, yeah, I edit this, I edit that. Oh, we move it around, we put it here. No. You had to know what you were doing in advance, get it done. When we were using the still cameras, shoot on film. Well, you better know what you're doing, because with film, you could easily take your 24 shots and have nothing. Right? Which I was there witnessing when some people had that go wrong, and they get back, and you know, it's like, first of all, you take your shots.
Scene again.
You take the shots, then 2 weeks later, you go to the dark room in Los Angeles, you know, you put it there. They would develop it like a week later. You get the rolls back. Now you're sitting there on the light table. You're looking, okay, trying to pick your box cover, because you got to look in the magnifying glass and see what's good, what's not. Technical skill. So, you know, now you've come to this point in time where girls know how to use this. And this is now good enough. And there's no skill required. Hit the button. It does the focus for me. It does the aperture. It does the color. Does everything. I just do this. Okay, great. You're a star. Okay, fabulous. But there's no skill. So that's now why I see this explosion, because, you know, you have the ability to do this has been around for 15, 20 years, but most of the girls were too lazy to do it. Now that from a technical perspective, it doesn't require any effort. Now you have the explosion of it, and then you have the explosion of social media, which is now your way to move traffic. So it's kind of like you have the technical abilities coming in, and then you have the ability to move traffic coming in, and so now you have this explosion of, you know, the
But
content creators.
It's still incredible opportunity.
Oh, it's definitely an incredible opportunity. That's without a doubt. I mean, for these women,
But you consider those people porn star?
it's different in this. And this goes back to what we spoke about earlier in terms of being a professional. When I look at you know, specifically if I'm going to look at the guys, because I'm a fellow actor, they're not porn stars because they can't show up here and do the job. They can do the job if it's their girlfriend and there's a little iPhone off in the corner and they have a comfy bed and everything is working in their favor. But you put them here beside me,
Zero.
oh my God, there's lights. Oh my God, there's this. Oh my God, the girl doesn't like me. Oh my God, you know, whatever's going
It's
on.
another word.
That the ability to switch your mind, to bring in that level of focus, that's non-existent. So would I say they're porn stars? No. Would I say they are well-paid amateurs? Yes. But it's really, if we're going to look at it from that perspective, it's an extension of amateur porn, which has been around forever. But I think that's all it really is an extension of, because if you're going to be, you know, the idea of a porn star, there is that level of professionalism and there's that ability, again, if we're looking at it through the eyes of purely of performance, you know, it's transcending to another level. If we look at, I mean, hell, let's take American football, right? I know we're in Europe here, but let's just take American football for a second. Now, I can throw a football. There's not a person alive that's going to pay me money to do it, but they'll pay Tom Brady. They'll pay Joe Montana. Why? Because that's a whole nother level of performance. I'm a rank amateur that likes to, you know, I can throw the football around in the backyard.
Oh,
But to
it's
throw
clear.
it 50 yards, you know, with somebody running full speed, and to have it just through a little window of like this, that is another level of skill. And to be able to get an erection with a whole bunch of people around, to be able to target your mind, to be able to not come before this allotted time, to be able to say, okay, now I'm switching my mind, now I'm going to produce a cum shot
It's
here.
another story.
It's a whole other thing. And so
Goes
that,
back
I
to the
think there's-
gift. 1 second where you said, fuck, soon I will need to do the same. Look, he's look at me, he knows, I know you wanted to say no. In fact, I never see you thinking about this.
No.
But at one moment, you know why I ask this. There is guys which they never inject and now they do because they told me. Professional, they tell me, Rocco, everybody does. I do.
Yeah.
And I guess you know also. So to you, never this happening in your
No.
brain, like,
But also, and this, I can only give you my perspective, right?
of course, it's clear.
So my perspective comes from, first of all, personal pride. Because
course.
for me, it's a very much a pride issue.
Of
It's
course.
like, I would rather retire. Yeah.
What's the
Well, I mean,
point?
from that perspective, maybe God, the universe, life is telling me it's time to move on. Right? Time to go somewhere else. And you see it all the time. Let's look at sports. There's athletes that, yeah, maybe they want to do another 20 years, and they look at their broken knees and they look at their, you know, destroyed tendons,
And
and
they
they're
move
like,
on different things, yeah.
got to go do something else, right? And I don't think you can just do one thing your whole life anyways. I think, you know, it's part of the journey of life. It's like, okay, well, we did this, we got some lessons. What else can we do? And there's a two-part to it, right? Because there's my perspective being in it. There's my perspective seeing what happens with it, which may be different from the perspective of the guy who just watches it and they can't tell the difference. So what I see is there's zero connection. The heat, the connection is totally gone. So it's like, rather than being almost like this moving sort of art piece, if we're going to call it that, right? But it's like this almost, the porn scene, if it's natural, is almost like this organic organism. And instead, we're just spraying it down with alcohol and we're just cleansing it, because now it's like the lighting will be perfect. The dick is going to be harder than hard, right? It's never going down. And the actor, he can be as possible open that would not even be possible for you and me, right? It like he could be and able to do it. And it's going to happen. And you're going to have the perfect light and the perfect shot. And there's going to be zero passion. Zero. Nothing. Because for two reasons. First of all, he's fucking doing his taxes in his mind. I don't know where his head's at. His head is not, because you see it. And you know, I'm not here to disparage or anything. I'm just trying to say facts, right? It's like, okay,
Facts.
you'll see a guy, he does that, and it's almost like the girl doesn't exist. I don't know where their head goes, because for me, and you know, I've had many fights with girlfriends because they will look at me in a scene and they'll say, "Oh, just recently, I had a whole issue because of a scene of yours that I was in."
Wow.
Right? Oh, you. I see how much you love that girl. I'm like, look, I have to
Who was the
get.
girl? Who was the girl?
I have to get into a headspace to do this. You don't understand what it takes, right? Like there has to be some level of horniness coming from somewhere. Like, you know, it's not like some girl where it's like, hey, some lube, I'm ready to go. It doesn't work like that. Like, not if you're a natural actor, right? So, yes, there is a level of passion and there's a connection because you have to have it somewhat to be able to get your dick hard. And you see it, you know, the guys that do the injection, it's like they are literally like the Terminator. That's what they are. It's like the porno Terminator because there's no feeling, there's no emotion, and you need 12 hours. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, past 2 hours, mine's going down. I'm like, it's done. It's tired. Rocco, we need the cum shot now. When I look at the porn that I was making in 2003, 2004, and I look at what things can happen in 2023, it's no different in terms of what's possible. The difference is that the commoditization of what's possible is changed. So when we used to do that, I think the quality, and when I'm talking about quality, I'm talking about what you're talking about, like how far can we push the girl? I don't think that has suffered that much at all. I think we were pushing the girls here in 2004, and maybe they're pushing the girl here in 2023, but not
so
very
big
much different in terms of, the difference is there were 6 guys you could call to do that. Now there's 600. In general, most of the companies are now owned by you know, money people, right? Where it's not, I don't think that they don't have a passion for porno, but they have a passion for the money. And from that perspective,
They don't
why
care.
why wouldn't you want an injector? I mean,
they don't give a shit.
because now, you know, you don't got to pay me. You can pay a guy half or less what I get paid, and he'll functionally work even better, right? From a pure functional perspective, right?
Yeah.
He's going to be hard for 12 hours. You can put him on the floor. You can put him there. He'll be hard, right? So I think from that company money perspective, they're happier than ever because they can pay less money. They can hire anybody. I mean, and I've seen it, you know, whereas 20 years ago, I've been there, you know, not to toot my own horn, but, you know, I remember there are times if I wasn't available, they didn't shoot. They're like, okay, when are you free? Because we know we have to have you to do this. And for 15, 20 years in America, back in the time, you know, there was an understood that there was a way that you all worked together to do it. Because you knew, okay, well, can't push the girl off the guy at the bottom because he's holding this whole thing together. And so people are working together. Now, the guy who injects they can't even understand what it's like
Because
to
they
be
never
in that
did
position.
without. They
Exactly.
cannot do without.
So there's the way that positions will be done is different, and I can feel the difference. And what's interesting is even some guys now that inject that didn't before, but they still understand what it's like to be there on the bottom, and I can feel the total difference when I'm working with them because
know.
they don't push the girl off you. They know it's like,
They know.
okay, there's
It's
a
more
way that this
difficult.
has to be done to facilitate what's going on.
Yeah.
But a guy that he's only ever done that, he's going crazy, and his brain just cannot fathom what the other person is going
Of
through
course,
trying to hold it
he
all
doesn't
together.
know. Porn should to be in the position of be educational.
Porn is entertainment. It's not education.
Yeah.
We're not educating anybody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If we're looking at what is porn, it is a visually impactful media meant to entertain. That's it. So, you know, if we're looking at it from what I see now, of course, right? You know, you've got how the business has changed with the new, I'm going to say new levels of consent, because consent was always there.
Of course.
There was never, you know, this idea
clear.
was always that. I mean, I remember when I was working in the late 90s. I mean, there was more consent than ever in terms of, you know, everybody knew what you're doing, what you're not doing. You know, this is what I like to do, this is what I don't like to do. So I think now with a lot of stuff, it's overkill. And I think it's predicated only on company fear. That's it.
That's all. Yeah.
Companies are worried
Scared.
about being sued for something, but I don't think what they're doing is helping anything. It's certainly not helping the product. You know, especially if you're in the business, right? Like you go into it and you understand the risks, right? So a lot of paperwork, especially things that they'll do right before a scene, does nothing to create an atmosphere of excitement, horniness, or any of these elements that you actually want. You know, I remember back in the day, right? Back in the day. But it was very true. I remember if we looked at sort of the height of Gonzo in that early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, probably up to 2005. It was almost a joke amongst a lot of us that directing a movie took no skill. You know what the skill was? I'm going to find two people that want to fuck the shit out of each other, and I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to turn on the camera and let the magic happen.
You sell everything.
Because and you could always see it. Like, I don't care. You can see when you watch some older movies where you see that two people really, really were into each other. It shows, you know, and now it's like you see people and they almost look like they don't like each other, or they're robots, or like we're doing it because we're getting
It's so
paid, and
true.
like, but I hate you and I hate this.
It's
and I
so
hate
true.
everything.
It's so true. It's
You know,
so
but
true.
you would see some stuff, and it was simply like, you know, I remember I had my list of guys when I was producing. I had my list of guys, so I knew, okay, I only shoot these 4 actors. But then I'm asking the girl, okay, I got 4 guys. Who do you want to fuck the shit out of? And they always have a favorite. Oh, that guy, right? Oh, well, you know what? Probably a good idea for me to hire him then.
Yeah.
And you hire them, and you see the sparks flying
Yeah.
immediately. It's like, I don't have to tell you what to do. You know, let's look at creativity. Somebody is going to be 10 times more creative when they're horny and turned on. They're going to, even myself, when I've been, you know, almost in a manic state of being turned on, that's where I've done the craziest shit. But if you were to ask me later, you probably even see this. Like, I could pick some girl up and do, and then you're like, okay, do it again. I'm like, I can't. Like, it was a moment. Like, I was
Yeah, of
like, because
course.
now, you know, there was that moment where I was so turned on and my dick is like this, and I'm like, and then if I could do it again, but now it's fake. It's not like there's nothing behind it. But here's again, this is the problem, right? We're trying to whitewash or cleanse something that's not clean, in the sense of, you know, you have sex. What's behind sex? Emotion. We have all these different emotions. So now we're trying to somehow have the sex, but we want to make it so there is no emotion. Nobody's happy. Nobody's sad. Nobody's crying. Nobody's in love. We just have nothing. And we're going to make that nothing by giving you this so that you feel nothing. She feels nothing.
90s, because like you said before, we had just fun.
Yeah.
We find ourselves, great sex, and we knew exactly, everybody knew what we were doing there.
But even from that perspective, you know, I mean, the when we look at porno, right, there's always creativity and there's newness, because you are never, even if you're having sex with the same woman, you're not doing it the same exact way. It's not the same feeling. It's not the same emotions. It's not like it. Every time you do it, it's going to be different. Even within that.
You just answered the second question. What's the difference between have a relationship, so sex with a woman outside or in front of the camera? But you answer.
Well, but I can go into that deeper. I mean, it's very different, right? And sometimes you have women that don't necessarily understand that, because there is, again, I bring it back to what I said about that.
Yeah, you had a relationship, you said, just when
Yeah.
you came to Europe.
Yeah, but there's that professional aspect to it, right? Like, okay, I'm working, meaning I don't do what I may want to do.
So that means she was not in the business.
No. It was in the business.
She was in the business?
Yeah. But in terms of, you know, sex in front of the camera and sex at home, it's always going to be different, because you can have elements of yourself that you bring onto set, right? And you can bring out different aspects of yourself, or you can experiment with different aspects of yourself on the set as well, right? So I find you can find new aspects of yourself, because I found things that beforehand I would have never thought that I would have liked in private, because I probably just wouldn't have done it. But I did it on the porn set, and it was like a switch. It was like, man, I like that. Never thought about that. So, but you're still going to be different at home, because there you really are following your desires in real time. And when you're on set, yeah, there's a part where you're following your desires. There's part where you're following what she needs. There's part where you're following what the director needs. There's part what you're following what the cameraman needs. There's part that you're following what the lighting needs.
It's easier with a woman who's on the business or with a woman who's not on the business?
It's almost 50-50, and I'll tell you why. It's easier with the girl not in the business, because they don't want to know anything. So I would say I've had less strife and less fights with the girl not in the business, because they really don't want to know. So whereas you have a girl from the business, you would think she understands the business.
But not really.
But not really, because again, and this is something I've often talked, you know, because I mentor a lot of young kids, right? And sometimes I'll have a young guy, you know, he's heartbroken about a girlfriend, right, that he broke up with. And, you know, young guys, when they're in love, typically they can't let it go, especially now with social media. So it's like they're looking at pictures of their ex, or they find out she's with some guy, and they need to know, like they want this closure. And I said, you don't want to know anything, because nothing that you're going to learn is going to help you mentally. It's going to hinder you mentally, because and I'll just use an example here that I've dealt with some young guys with. So you say, okay, your girlfriend cheated on somebody. Better not to know his name, what he looks like, anything, because as soon as you do, you're going to magnify the mental picture that you're going to start making in your mind. And it's not going to get better. There's no amount of extra knowledge that makes you feel better. It only makes you feel worse. It only makes you feel worse. So the girl that is not in the business, she really doesn't even have a fantasy to create about what it might be like on set. But the girl that's in the business, you know, if I say, oh, I'm working for Rocco, she'll have this fantasy because she's maybe seen the studio, or she knows you, or she knows the other actress, and I know that girl. So she'll start to concoct this fantasy in her head that's not reality at all, but she's going to make it so painful, and all these things are going on that it's worse. So I would say it's almost easier with a girl that's not in the business because they won't create this fantasy that is not reality, that
Because
they
they
will
don't know.
create just to...
You don't have too many details to create
Yeah,
the fantasy.
because the more details you have, suddenly you're making this fantastical thing. And I can't tell you how many times I've had a fight with a girlfriend, and she'll accuse me of all these things, and like I know the truth, and inside I'm laughing because I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I slept on the couch, I had a sandwich, I had a coffee, I was on my phone. That was my day. And then Rocco said, hey, come do the scene, right? And in their mind, like, somehow I must be in the bathroom, and I'm fucking this girl, and I'm fucking this girl, and I'm like,
That was not me.
where did you get this ideation from? But because they know you, they know the girl, they start to create this. All I can say is they create a painful
No,
fantasy.
I know. Is porn difficult place to find the true friends? To
Yes.
make true friends?
Yes, 100%. 100%.
No, I see your face like 100%.
No, I mean,
but
like, let's look at it this way. I spent 17 years in Los Angeles.
Because I know there is people loves you, so that's why I'm saying.
No,
that.
but hey, I spent 17 years working.
One
in
of
Los
these
Angeles.
guys is me.
Yeah, but
Hey, you know this.
I know, but I'm saying, like, I spent 17 years working in LA. I moved here. How many people do you think have called to check up on me?
I don't have many friends either, so I don't
Right?
have many friends.
So you look at how many people have you interacted with, how many people, and then you leave, and it's like, okay. So it's I would say it's cutthroat from that perspective, right? I don't know that it's friendships. I think what it is, and certainly what I've noticed, I think it's less about friendship and more about respect,
Okay.
right? So
People you
because
don't
there
respect.
could be a lot of, even a lot of actors I'm not friends with, but I respect what they can do.
Of course.
And I look at them, I'm like, yeah, you are fucking good
Yeah.
at what you do. We don't have dinner together, we never hang out, we never do anything, but if I look at you do your job, I'm like, no, you're fucking good at your job. I always think there's difference, it's like you have acquaintance, you have buddy, and you have friend.
Yeah,
And it's different. It's different.
Where do you think, truthfully, porn should improve?
Well, so if we were going to improve porn, and I don't know if we can get it back there. I mean, I think this is gonna be kind of sad now, but I think no, because truthfully, I think we've hit a point where this generation is lost, and I don't think it's recoverable.
This
I don't
last
think it's-
one.
I don't think it's recoverable because
But it's not porn. It's the word, because porn always faced the society in any type of. I remember in the 90s, what we do in porn was what the people was outside. So today, it's the full generation, which I think is different. So porn generation is exactly what we have outside. Same thing.
Okay. So, which could very well be true, right? So then, let's start looking at how would we improve that. I think number one, well, let's look at kind of the youth today, and it's very disconnected, right?
Super disconnected.
Youth is disconnected from family, disconnected from friends, disconnected from purpose, disconnected from a lot of things. So now you see that disconnection when it comes to sex, because so we've got that disconnect there. The lack of belief. This is a big one. I'll tell you a funny story. All right, because this was fairly recent. I'd say a couple years ago, and I'm doing a scene and some new guy, and and they've been working with me for a while, right? And this was some new guy that can't remember where he came from, but he was brought into a scene, and so he does the first scene, and he's not very good. So first thing one of the actors does is, well, just take this, right? And so this guy turns to me, and he's worked with me a couple times, right? But he turns to me and he's like, hey man, how do you do this? I said, I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. I've never done this in my life. And I could see his brain go through this moment where he's like, on one hand, he see like I stop touching my dick goes down, so he's like, okay, but he couldn't conceive that it would be possible to do it at a high level without the drugs.
Yeah, of course.
And this is what I talk about when I teach students, and I harp about this a lot, where I talk about something I've termed the reverse 4-minute mile. Do you want me to explain the reverse 4-minute mile to you? Okay, you know this was, God, what was it? I think it was like in the 50s or 60s. There was the idea of the 4-minute mile. Okay, and it was, at that time, it was known as this, it was impossible. There's no way you could run 1 mile in 4 minutes.
Okay.
So that was it. It was like, you're going to run 4 minutes, you're going to run a mile. Like, it's like, nobody can do it. And it was impossible. Until the first person did it. I can't remember their name now, but one person, they timed it and we did it it was like 3 minutes, 58 seconds, or I don't know, something like that, right? But he broke the 4-minute mile, and it was like, I think it was 2 weeks later, next person did it. Next month later, next person did it. Why?
Because they
Belief.
could see, belief.
Belief.
Yeah.
It was all belief. Now, we've gone to this new generation where there's no belief.
No belief, yeah, of course.
Right? So funny, I'm not going to mention the name, but there's one actor that we worked with recently the last couple days.
Okay.
And he came to me because he can see I'm the only one that's like, okay, give me a second. He looks at me, he's like, no pills even? No. But he's young, right? So we know what we're talking about, right? Young kid. And it can't register on the map because there's zero belief now. All they see is
Yeah.
But I remember way back 1998, 1999, and none of that stuff existed. And you saw where people's minds would go, and you'd see, like, even if they were having a bad day, right? It's like where I'd watch these veterans, and my God, do you want to know something incredible? I think I spoke about this to you before, but I remember working, and I was young. I was 22 when I started working for Randy West. Brand new, right? And I think Randy was 55.
Yeah.
55 when I worked beside him. Okay, and he'd hire me, and I remember he used to call me Double E. hey, double E, you know, you come over to Randy's house, like, hey, make yourself comfortable here. I get the girls here, you know, she's in the makeup chair, you know. He'd sit there, have a cigarette. He's like, oh, relax, yo. I tell you what, you start fucking her, I'll come in, I'll fuck her a little bit, I'll do a pop shot, we'll relax. I'm 22 years old. Now, I was good, but here's Randy, 55. 2 pop shots every scene.
I remember.
And I mean, it's just relaxed, and you know, I mean, he's not doing crazy positions, but I mean, man, was he a performer. And you know, if I was to do, you know, because I always made sure, you know, to hold my cum shot, because I'm like, okay, if I come, how long is it going to take for me to get it back? Like, you know, I set myself up for success because I understood my body, and I said, well, I'm not going to lose one early because my body, maybe it comes back right away, maybe not. But I watch him do 1, sit 10 minutes, cigarette,
2.
all right, ready to go. I'm like, okay, ready again, Randy? Okay, let's do this, right? So you see someone like that, you're inspired. Because I'm like, fuck. I'm like, okay. Like, I know I can see what's possible. So now your head's like, all right. And I would see, you know, some actors that would do incredible things. Like, I remember I was...
TT Boy.
I never, you know, what's funny is I never got to work beside TT Boy. Never got to work
TT
beside
Boy was at
but
this level.
I heard he was the best of all time in terms of what he could do.
Wood and cam shot 5-6 times a day. I saw him working. It was surreal, but he was this belief.
Yeah.
He was exactly, I can do. I can do. That was TT Boy. He did his first scene with me. John Leslie, Chameleon. He was on the cage, 20 big guys. He's the smallest. Even though he was big, still he was the tiny one. Old guy's huge. And he goes like, hey, Italian, get me out from the cage. I fuck the girl with you. Let's go this. I'm like, who the fuck he wants this guy? Asking John, what? And John said, hey, shut up, man, because he was an extra. But there was a gang bang. You believe or not, after I came, the guys came out on the girl to finish on gang bang. He was the only one who could do it, the girl. Everybody else, he was like pushing everybody away and fuck the girl. Came 3-4 times. I look the guy say, who is this guy? He became TT Boy, like really one of the best ever.
But it all starts from that belief. Because here's the thing, and remember, so what you were just talking about, where what's in porno is representative of society.
Always been.
And so this is exactly true then. Notice, when I was a kid, right, when I was young, you didn't hear about guys that just couldn't get hard all of a sudden, right? Like, I certainly never heard about it, right?
Never.
And now, how many? And I'm not talking in porno. I'm talking civilian young kids that I know in their 20s that think they have to take Viagra or they have to take something to be able to fuck. I'm like, you're 22.
Where do you think this comes from?
I think it is. I think it's psychological, and I think it is a lack of belief in oneself, and I think it's self-created because these drugs are available. So now they think in their minds, nobody ever had sex. How many, 200,000, a million years? How many years have we been having sex? No problem. All of a sudden, in one generation, we don't believe it's possible without a pill because now magically there's this magic pill.
So
it's all mental. I think it's 100%
all
a mental
auto-convinced.
disease.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we could look at it even in terms of look at the gender sort of dysphoria that's going on now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like if you look statistically, and we're just saying statistically, right? You could go back in forever. You know, you could say, okay, what percentage of population are, you know, trans, right? It's like 0.1% or 0.5%. Very small. Now suddenly, what now? Now it's 15%, 20%. Everybody's.
30,
I don't
40.
know if I'm a man or. You should be authentically
Yourself.
who you are.
Yeah, who you are.
right? And not because, well, this group says I should be this way, and this group says I should be that way, and
Ever experienced jealousy being such awarded winner, big, famous from talents here, especially here in Europe or in America?
it's like you have to grow out of it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where I got to it, where it's like, you know what? Because like one of the things I never understood, it's like I won every award except the one, and it was like, everybody's like, how did you never win Male Performer of the Year?
That is incredible, yeah.
Right.
I didn't know.
But, I would always be nominated and I would get sort of like jealous because I'm like, man, like I know internally what I do, which is separate from externally. Because I remember one year, one actor won it who everybody knew was 50-50 most of the time. He only really worked for the big feature movies because he would never be able to work for you, right? Like in terms of actual performance. But, the fans, they just see what's edited. So it's not like, so to me, after a while I was like, you know what? That's their opinion. And I know what I do for the people that I work for, right? Like I know, if you hire me, you know what I'm getting. If these people hire me, they know what I'm getting, right? The fans, that's different because you could take a guy that struggles. You could be here 10 hours, cut it to 30 minutes, and the guy at home thinks that guy's a god. But they don't know what the
Truth,
real
yeah,
situation
of
is.
course.
And the only downside when you're thinking about, awards, it's subjective, not objective. Right? Like if we were to say, we're doing sports, right? Well, that's live. So it's like if for example, like if every porn scene was live, then you'd be like, all right, different ball game. Because now it's objective.
Yeah.
Okay, how fast did you get hard? How fast were you
Right.
able to do this? Like, could you,
Yeah, but
how
everything
long
is
could you hold the
edited.
girl for standing, whatever? Like,
Yeah.
you could have all these objective metrics. When it's subjective and maybe, he was hard for 15 minutes and that was it.
Yeah.
And you duplicate the footage and you make it 30 minutes because you just loop it. I remember those
course.
days. I remember, this was funny. They don't do it anymore because you get the guys with the injections now, but
Before
Maybe-
they used to do this, yeah?
well, I remember how many times I had to be a stunt cock. And I always thought it was so ridiculous, right? Because there'd be a guy who, he had maybe long skinny dick and he wouldn't be able to come or he would go.
Then they put your dick,
and they
which
put
is
me in,
different.
and but they would cut me like this, right? So it'd be like extreme close up. And, it's like my dick is this thick. So I'm like, who's, but they would go super close thinking like, hey, just do the pop shot because I'm like, okay, do the cum shot. But we used to do that. We used to do,
remember. What is your project for the future?
Oh, my project is the Everhard Academy. That's my main thing. now,
Wow!
which is, it's an extension of my coaching business,
Okay.
right? I got my second book, which is coming out here soon, the Tao of Eating Pussy, Porn Star's Guide to Clitoral Mastery. So second book, and I have my clients that I work with one-to-one, and what I teach them is sort of kind of what we've been talking about here, right? Like I go into, but in terms of
Normal life, not
how can they
porn
take,
story.
not for porno, how can they take it for normal life? Because
That's very good, very interesting.
it's the same, those lessons are all applicable and I think are more necessary than ever because I'll work with young or middle-aged guys and they can't focus. They can't get their head right. They can't get their mindset right. They don't understand what options they have available to them in the moment. Because I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, look, especially, say for example, they can't last long enough. I'm like, there is always something available to you if you have the right tools. Then it's like, okay, Do I need to reach into the pain toolbox? Do I need to reach into this positional toolbox? Do I need to reach into depth? Do I need to reach into using this position to allow myself to last longer? Do I have to go into maneuvers of consciousness? Do I have to move my conscious awareness around my body? Like, when you have a plethora of tools, there's never a situation that you can't overcome. Ever. I'm a firm believer in that. But I have to give them tools, because they get in there with a woman, and things start to go wrong, and they don't know what to do. They're like, oh,
That's fantastic.
You know,
That's fantastic.
so
It
that's-
brings all your experience, your knowledge. And now I understand why you keep it natural.
yeah, because
Because
it's
otherwise you can't teach all this. You must
can't.
be the first one who does exactly what you teach. Otherwise, what we are talking about.
and that's where you know, like I've really, especially the last couple of years, I've really started to understand myself better, because when I started the journey, and the journey of an actor, right? It's like what you talked about at the beginning, the gift. It's like, okay, I had
It's
the gift,
I always believe this.
but I couldn't explain what the gift
yeah.
was. And then as I started, because you know what they always say, right? It's like, okay, if you want to be good, practice. If you want to be great, teach. And as soon as you have to teach, now you learn more than ever, because it's like, okay, I was doing something unconsciously, like I would have what I did in a scene, but I never stepped back and started to break apart, like, why do I do that? What am I really doing there? And as I started to really deconstruct it, I said, that's why I do that. That's why I do this. Oh, when I do this, it puts my mind in this different place. When I do things like this, it gives me different sensations. When I do a position like this, oh, now I can be able to do a DP forever. Or, you know, there's so much nuance even within a scene. And it's one of those things where I consider it really setting yourself up for success. You know what? Here's a true story. We'll go back to TT Boy, because I remember one of the best lessons I ever got from him. And it was an early lesson that really took me down the path of set yourself up for success. I was sitting in Jim South's office, and, you know, TT and me always got along. Like, he always liked me. And I remember we were talking about something, and the concept of condoms came up, because, you know, this was when there was still a lot of condom-only productions. And he goes to me, he goes, hey, man, lambskin. You got to use the lambskins, man. Because it feels like you're fucking with nothing. And you can stay hard, and you can do that. I was like, and sure enough, you know, I went out, and I'm like, well, I'm going to try these. And then I took his lesson, and whenever I showed up to set, I always had my own condoms. And then I started trying different ones, and I found the ones that worked, because then I saw quickly, I would show up on set, the guys that didn't set themselves up for success, they took whatever the production had. And then you'd see half of the guys
Go down.
struggling.
Yeah, struggling.
And they'd look at me like, man, how can Everhard do the DP and the crazy anal? It's like, he's almost as good as without a condom. How does he do it? And they'd be handing out the condoms. They're like, no, I got my own. And that, I meted that out to everything. So I can't tell you how many girlfriends have been angry with me, because I'd be going to work the next day. I'm not fucking them the night before. I can't. You and they'd be super angry. And I'm like, no. I fuck you all night long. Now my dick is tired the next day. Now I'm not reliable. Now I'm not at the peak physical ability that I could be. It's no different. It's the athlete's mindset. You know, you take any really, really top of their level athlete, they're not going out and drinking and doing cocaine and doing blah, blah, blah the day before the big match. The average ones that are just, you know, have some talent, yeah, they'll do that. But the top of the top,
they don't.
they're not at all.
Of course.
Right? You know, someone like yourself, you're in the gym, you're eating healthy, you're doing your weights, you're doing your jogging, you're not out partying, right? Because you're like, no, if I'm going to be here, that's another level. And it all starts from how are you setting yourself up? What are you doing daily to allow yourself to be at that top level? Because I don't care how gifted you are. You could be the most gifted person in the world, and you're only going to be here if you do everything negative
Yeah,
that is
wrong.
going to impact your ability to be a good actor.
Of course, you need that. You need also personality, attitude. You can have the gift, as you said, like many guys which we know, gift, but the mind too crazy. They didn't have the mind of someone professional.
No, and
You call
I-
professional.
You know,
Gift
there was
plus
one
professional.
actor when I first got in '99, and he was an up and coming star, and this guy, he had it all. I mean, when I look at a guy, right? Like, I mean, he was, especially for this time, right? He was tall. He was abs, super athletic. He had it all. And he could never get it together. And I just remember, you know, because I mean, he was a nice guy, and he'd show up on set, and from my perspective, it's like, man, God has gifted you. We would all want what you've got. I want what you've got, for fuck's sakes, right? I mean, he had all the tools by God to be a superstar, and he could never get it together. He could never get his mind right. He would always party, and he was, at best, a 50-50 guy.
Yeah,
at best.
always, yeah.
And he could have been one of the top. He
10
had
plus.
everything to be a superstar. Everything.
Anyway, Eric, I want to say thank you, but one thing I want to say, you can start your, not 1-at-1, but 1-at-1,000 people, because you are an incredible teacher. I tell you the truth. I was very interested, very pleased to hear your vision, because I know you teaching, but we never really get through this. And
Yeah.
was very impressed, because what you said, to know things is something, to teach others takes another level.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Thank you
Grazie
very much.
mille, grazie.